Hi, my name is Elizabeth and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Here we like to talk about astrology, numerology, and everything written in the stars for you. Today I want to talk about, now that Pluto is stationed direct in Aquarius, what this is going to mean for you based on your sun, moon, and rising sign, as well as how it will affect us globally as a society, and the themes that we're going to see over the next 20 years as Pluto is going to be in Aquarius until 2044. The themes that we are going to see pop up over the next 20 years are going to be more around humanitarian efforts. It's going to push us into more of a digital revolution and also have us explore space more. We've already seen themes of extraterrestrials pop up in our media as the United States government has said that there are aliens in the ocean, and we are also going to begin to make contact with such life forms. These type of things are going to pop up more and more and more as Pluto transits through Aquarius. Aquarius is more of the weirdo of the zodiac. It's ruled by Uranus, which is known for strange, abrupt, unexpected changes. And as we see Pluto transit the sign of Aquarius, there are going to be strange things that are going to pop up. We're also going to see strange things happening with our fashion trends, which I talked about in my previous video. We are going to start to see a huge theme around our global society, around extraterrestrials, around humanitarianism, around things that are a little bit different and we had considered strange when Pluto was in Capricorn are now going to become mainstream. We are going to see more and more and more humanitarian efforts pop up around the globe. This is going to be a theme that we're going to see over the next 20 years as well. We are going to begin to start to communicate with other countries more and more often, which we have already started to see as US citizens have begun to communicate more with China during the potential TikTok ban. And now that we have the trend of the American lady in Pakistan, Americans have also begun to communicate more with Pakistan and seeing the way that they live more and more and more often. I believe that we're going to start to see this theme through the next 20 years and into 2024, and it's going to leave a lasting global impact on us. In our media, we have seen a bunch of recent events that have begun to stir up the US population and evoke emotional reaction on us. This is going to cause us to begin to want to rebel against the things that are happening that seem out of our control. We may see more and more protests pop up in the streets around humanitarian efforts in order to progress us. Pluto in Aquarius is going to affect us each individually in a different way. It is important to look at your sun, moon, and rising sign to get a full picture of how this is going to affect you. If you have any planets in Aquarius, it will affect you more intensely because you might find yourselves in more positions of power over the next 20 years. You may get a promotion at work. You may go into the media and rise to the top and become a celebrity where you are in the limelight. People with Aquarius placements will be pushed out into the universe and will now be put into the spotlight so we can emulate them as a society. We saw this during Pluto in Sagittarius when many celebrities had Sagittarius placements, and we saw more people in power have Sagittarius placements. We're going to see a very similar theme when Pluto is in Aquarius, where people who have Aquarius placements are going to be in the limelight. And as a word of caution, you might also find more intensity in your life. Things might begin to shift and change in a more intense direction. If you have Aquarius placements, you are going to have a very intense next 20 years, but you might also find a lot of power in that intensity and find yourself rising into the spotlight or into the limelight over the next 20 years as well. I'm also predicting anybody with a lot of air and fire energy is also going to be doing well under the influence of Pluto in Aquarius. We are also going to find the fixed signs are going to go through more intense transformation over this time, especially if you are a Scorpio or a Taurus, as it's going to be squared your energy. Leo placements are going to have a little bit more easier of a time as it's opposing Pluto in Aquarius, which is not necessarily negatively afflicted. When we had Pluto in Capricorn did super well with the water signs, and it also did super well with the earth signs as it was trying and sextile that energy. It was not as easy for Libra placements, Cancer placements, or Aries placements during that time. Now, going into all the rising signs, remember it's important to look at your sun, moon, and rising to get a full picture of how this transit is going to affect you. If you are an Aries rising, you are going to find more power in large groups of people. You are also going to find that more and more people are going to enter your life during the next 20 years. You might find your social networks growing. You might find your network of people growing. You may also find that if you're on social media, your social media following is going to grow and change in a very intense way. You might also find that you're going to have more intense interactions with groups of people and with your friendship groups over the next 20 years. You may also find that you're going to have more drama and intensity on social media as well, whereas it might not have been there before. You might have had more of a chill life. You could have been focusing more on your career and having more intensity in your career. But now you're going to shift and change all of that energy into large groups of people and into your friendship groups, where you're going to find intensity, drama, and transformation and change over the next 20 years. And once we finally reach 2045, which I know is very far from now, you are going to be a completely different person, and your relationship with other people is going to totally and completely shift and change. If you're a Taurus rising, the next 20 years for you are going to be heavily focused on your career. You are going to be pushed into the spotlight where you will be in a position of leadership and power. Your career over the next 20 years is going to shift, transform, and change you until you are a very powerful leader, or you could be somebody like a celebrity or a public figure where you are in the spotlight now. You may find that your public image is going to receive a lot of fame and notoriety for something that you do, something that you say, something that you create. If you're, for example, a music artist, because that's a really great example, you are going to find that your music career is all of a sudden going to start to take off. If you started to produce music 5-10 years ago, now is your time to step into your power, get your streams, and become the superstar who you are supposed to be. That is what Pluto transiting your 10th house for Taurus rising is going to do for you. If you are a Gemini rising, you are going to find a lot of intensity over the next 20 years in travel and higher education. Over the next 20 years, you could be going back to school if you already have a degree, or you could be entering college for the first time, where you have a lot of intense experiences during that time. You could want to have like your master's and then your doctorate, and then you get 5 other doctorates. The planet Pluto brings so much intensity and obsession to one aspect of our lives. And when you have Pluto transiting your 9th house of higher education, travel, and things like that, you are going to find so much intensity and obsession with that topic. You could also all of a sudden decide to work really, really hard on your higher education, so it will then in turn help your career. If you are a doctor, perhaps you want to get more and more degrees in order to push yourself forward through your career, in order to increase your credibility as a doctor. Or if you have a law degree, this is very likely as well. You could find yourself immersed in books. You could be reading book after book after book, trying to study and learn all of the information you can about a certain topic in order to become very, very good in your field at what you do, because it will build your credibility. You could find an obsession with this over the next 20 years. You could also find that you are traveling more and more and more often over the next 20 years. You could find that you're going from place to place, either if it's for pleasure or for business. You could just all of a sudden begin to travel more often, and you're going to find more transformation in travel. For example, you could want to start a travel blog, or maybe you start a travel Instagram, or perhaps you even start one of those YouTube pages where you are traveling and that's all you do. Pluto tends to bring so much intensity in that area of life and obsession that it could be completely engulfed in you at the time, where that's all you want to do. You want to go from place to place and document it and share it with the world. And people will eat it up at the time, because it will also bring you a lot of power. If you're a Cancer rising, buckle up over the next 20 years, because Pluto is going to be transiting your 8th house of death, rebirth, everything magic, the occult. So when you have the planet of death and rebirth transiting your 8th house, when Pluto rules over the 8th house, you're going to find so much intensity in that area of life. It's not just going to be, oh, I'm gonna go down this one path. It's going to be so intense for you over the next 20 years. You might also find that you might go through some traumatic events over the next 20 years that will cause you to shape and transform yourself, to change yourself into a different direction. I feel like with Pluto, when it wants you to transform, or even with the 8th house, when it wants you to transform, it's the type of thing like when you would see in anime, how like anime characters would break their fingers, get them to do something. That is what Pluto wants you to do. It wants you to do something like very over the top to then transform yourself and become better and stronger. And you might find yourself engulfed in magic over the next 20 years. You might get more into astrology, more into numerology, more into things of that nature in order to help yourself grow and make more light of what is happening to you over the next 20 years. You might also experience some paranormal events. You might all of a sudden start to feel things or see things that weren't there before, and you turn to astrology or numerology to kind of like make sense of it all. Or you might turn to other occult topics to kind of help you make sense of everything. You might also get more invested in like things like crystals in order to help you kind of get an understanding of what is happening to you. during the next 20 years. You could also have more finances enter your life from other people. So you could also have a lot of intensity with other people's money. Maybe you start a side business where you have a product that you're selling and everybody wants to purchase that product, and you have a lot of intensity in all of that money flowing to you. Perhaps you create a new product and you're selling it on Etsy, and all of a sudden that business turns into $1 million business. That is another thing that could happen when you have Pluto transiting your 8th house. If you are a Leo rising, over the next 20 years, you're going to experience so much intensity with your one-on-one partnerships and relationships. You might find that over the next 20 years, more and more and more people will enter your life when they weren't there before. Pluto in Capricorn, you could have been kind of alone, or you could have been by yourself focusing on kind of like your day-to-day life. And now with Pluto in Aquarius, you are going to change and transform yourself as new people enter your life who you have never met before. These people will have more of a Plutonian aspect to them, where they will be very intense people. They will also love humanitarian efforts, and they also might be a bit eccentric. All these people will shape and transform you over the next 20 years into becoming somebody who you had never thought you would become when Pluto was in Capricorn from 2008 to 2024. You will shift and grow and change as more people enter your life. You might also find that this is going to help your career in some way, as you will become very popular very fast. For example, during Pluto in Capricorn, we had a lot of celebrities come out into the spotlight when Pluto was transiting their 7th house, and they became very popular because we all wanted to have like a relationship with them. We all kind of had this like parasocial relationship with them, where we were listening to their music or we were watching them on TV. That's a very good example of something that could happen when you have Pluto transiting your 7th house. Or again, if you are in the business world, maybe all of a sudden you get pushed into the spotlight at work and everybody wants to talk to you. They want to know you. They want to be friends with you in some way, and they might become obsessed with you, or they might have some sort of intensity towards you. You might also find that you have more drama in your life at this time. It kind of goes hand in hand with the intensity that Pluto transiting your 7th house gives you. But all of this drama and intensity and obsession that other people will have towards you will end up projecting you into a completely different direction that you never thought could happen when Pluto was in Capricorn. If you are a Virgo rising, you are going to have Pluto transiting your 6th house of your health, your work life, your coworkers. When you have Pluto transiting your 6th house of health, you're going to find a lot of intensity around your health. During this time, you could have health scares. You could be diagnosed with an illness that you had never thought you would ever get in your entire life. You're going to find so much intensity around that aspect of your life, where you might begin to only focus on your health, and that is it. You might all of a sudden be like, okay, everything that's happening to me right now is the time to just focus on my health and make sure that I am good. I do not want this health scare to get worse. I only want to make sure that I'm okay. You might find yourself in the hospital to take care of an illness. Maybe you get something along those lines, or maybe you all of a sudden have back issues where you never had back issues before, or maybe you all of a sudden become allergic to something when you have never been allergic to anything before. Something like that could very likely happen when you have Pluto transit your 6th house. You might also find that during your work life, you're going to find a lot of intensity and drama in your work. As when Pluto transits the sign, it brings the intensity, it brings the drama. You may have drama with your coworkers. They could bring the drama towards you when you never thought that would happen in your entire life. That is very likely when you have Pluto transiting your 6th house. Another thing that could happen, maybe you have to change careers. Maybe you find that the career that you were in previously now has to change to another career over the next 20 years into something new. Maybe you find yourself changing careers and transforming and shifting and changing into a brand new path that you had never thought you would ever be on before. As Pluto brings death, transformation, and intensity into our lives, this could have a huge impact on your day-to-day work, where all of a sudden you are in this career when Pluto is in Capricorn, you're climbing up the ladder, you're doing well, all of a sudden something dramatic happens with your health or with your coworkers, and all of a sudden you leave that job and then you enter a brand new career that might even be more humanitarian, where you can help the world. That is very likely when you have Pluto transiting your 6th house. If you are a Libra rising, you are finally going to have more of a chill time in your life. I feel like Libra risings have gone through the darkness. They've had so many dark house houses lit up generational planets over the past 20 years, since 2008 through 2024, that now it is finally time to have some fun, because Pluto is going to be transiting your 5th house of creativity, joy, and it's going to bring a lot of intensity in those areas. You might also find that during this time you might have children, as well, as the 5th house rules over children. During the next 20 years, you are going to find a lot of intensity in your own hobbies, your creativity, what you create. If you are an artist, you're going to find that the things you create during this time shift and change and receive a lot of notoriety from other people. Certain celebrities who have had Pluto transit their 5th house recognized for their creativity or the things that they create. You're going to find so much intensity and change and transformation in your artwork. If you do videography, the video that you do, your style, your fashion, everything all of a sudden is going to be so intense, because Pluto brings intensity into that area. You could have worked in a completely different field during Pluto and Capricorn, and now when Pluto is in Aquarius, all of a sudden you're only working in a creative industry and that's all you're doing. You might also during this time become very obsessive with what you're creating, so obsessive to the point where like that's all you want to do all day, all these ideas that you want to put out into the world. You might also find more intensity in your dating life. For a celebrity example, during Pluto in Sagittarius, Angelina Jolie had Pluto transit her 5th house, where she saw a lot of intensity in her dating life. We saw intensity in plutonic themes, like when she was dating Billy Bob Thornton, and when she was dating Brad Pitt as well. That was during Pluto and Sagittarius. There was so much intensity and Plutonian themes surrounding her dating life. And what makes it even more intense is the fact that this was in the public eye the whole time, where everybody was talking about it. It helped her gain more fame and notoriety, as well as the parties involved. That is something that could very well happen when you have Pluto transit your 5th house. You might also find that, again, you're creating things that get a lot of recognition from people. If you're posting things on social media, maybe they all go viral. When you have Pluto transiting your 5th house, you could become prone to gambling and becoming more rebellious with the things that you do. So you have to be cautious not to gamble too much, because you're going to be more likely to do this under a 5th house influence of your chart, especially with Plutonian themes. So you could become obsessed with gambling, or you could be obsessed with doing rebellious things. Maybe you decide to do rebellious things on social media, and that's helping you get more money and recognition. But you have to be careful, because you can form a obsession with this and there could be a lot of intensity there. If you're a Scorpio rising, Pluto is going to be transiting your 4th house of mental health, home life, domestic life. You also find your relationships with women there as well. So when you have Pluto transiting this house, you are going to find a lot of death, rebirth, and change in your home life. You might find that all of a sudden people in your family begin to, like, you know, as they age, that could be something that could happen. You might find that your family is shifting and growing and changing as new people enter your life. You might also find that you might get married during this time, and your marriage partner might become very, very intense. They might live with you. You might begin to have children, and you would have a very Plutonian life over the next 20 years. So it's important to make sure that someone who you marry or your children during this time is all going to be very intense, dramatic, and Plutonian. So make sure that, like, you understand that this is the energy that you're going into over the next 20 years. For example, Trisha Paytas had Pluto transit her 4th house during the past 20 years. And during this time, we also saw a lot of intensity with her mental health and things happening to her that she would post on social media, and people would eat it all up, you know, but then she would end up having to go to the doctor to take care of her mental health. That's another thing that could happen to you during Pluto transiting your 4th house, because 4th house is where we have mental health issues there as well. So when you have Pluto transit there could be some huge intensity. Maybe your mental health gets put in the spotlight. And you might also find that your relationships during this time period will have a huge focus on women and your relationships with women. Maybe you only have a friend group that is women. Maybe your family becomes predominantly women. Something like that will happen during a 4th house Pluto transit. If you're a Sagittarius rising, you are going to find that over the next 20 years, you are going to find more radical shifts and changes in the way you speak, the way you communicate, your thought patterns, and also short-term travel. You are going to find that over the next 20 years, you are going to have a lot of intensity around the way that you communicate and what you do. You had a very different job from 2008 through 2024 when Pluto was in Capricorn. When Pluto is in Aquarius, you might make your entire job communications. You might become a communications specialist or a communications expert. You might find that with Pluto transiting your third house of mental agility, communications, the way you speak, the way you write, you're going to have so much intensity there. You might be writing for your job. You might be doing PR or speaking or working in communications for your job. You might all of a sudden have changing thought patterns and beliefs. You might also find that during this time, you're going to be going to the store more or going and shopping more and finding that this is kind of like a cool thing at the time, and you might be kind of obsessed with it. If you're a Capricorn rising, you're going to have Pluto transit your second house of earning power. This is also where we find our self-worth, our skills, and our personal resources and finances. When you have Pluto transiting your second house, you're going to find so much intensity in how you see yourself, how you perceive yourself, and how other people see you as well. You might become a lot more confident than you were when you had Pluto transit your first house of Capricorn since 2008 through 2024. And you might also step into the spotlight, which will allow you to have higher earning power in whatever you do. You might be working harder and harder and harder and earning more money. You might also be in the spotlight and being recognized for something that you do, either if you are a speaker for your company, or maybe if you decide to start to create music, start becoming an actor, start posting on social media, you are going to see more intensity in your own self-worth and the way that people perceive you. You might receive a lot of recognition. You might receive a lot of recognition for the things that you do in your own personal skills and how talented you are in one thing. You might find that people become obsessed with you and your skills, who you are as a person, which will boost your self-confidence and higher your own self-worth, making you feel better about yourself. And you're going to find this transformation happen over the next 20 years, and it's going to be very intense. You're going to find that a lot of people are going to recognize you for your talents, for your gifts, for your skills. Whereas before, they might have been sleeping on you a little bit. But now when you step into this new energy, everybody's going to be like, wow, this person's actually really smart and talented. Oh, and I really like what they do. This is very influential on me and what I want to do in the future. This is something that could very well happen when you have Pluto transit your second house. If you're an Aquarius rising, you're going to have Pluto transiting your first house of appearances, how you view yourself, how you perceive yourself in this world. When you have Pluto transiting your first house, you're going to find a lot of intensity in the way that you appear to others. The way that you appear to others is going to have a huge transformational effect on them. It's going to transform society with simply the way you look. This is the energy where you post a picture on Pinterest or Instagram, or you post pictures on TikTok, or just film videos where you're just looking pretty on TikTok, and all of a sudden you go viral for that and everybody wants to emulate you. They all want to emulate your energy. They want to do their hair the same way as you. They want to do your makeup the same way as you. They want to wear the same clothes as you. You might also find that during this time, you might also begin to be a little bit less confident in your self-appearance, and you might change yourself more and more and more. You might transform your appearance. You might change your hair a bajillion times. You might change your wardrobe a bajillion times. You might change your makeup. You might also get interested in doing things like plastic surgery to change your appearance. You might also find yourself becoming addicted to something like plastic surgery or lip filler or doing face masks. You might find that you begin to want to change and transform your appearance to fit the way that you feel on the inside. A celebrity example of somebody who has had Pluto transit their first house is Ariana Grande. Ariana Grande, we saw from 2008 through 2024 transform her appearance so many times. She went from having dark hair to having red hair, to having more of a light brown, and then now to a stark blonde color. She has changed her hair so many different times. In her own videos, she has said she had plastic surgery during this time. She also changed her wardrobe a lot. However, it became so influential on everybody. It gave her so much power in her appearance that we all kind of wanted to dress like Ariana Grande. We all wanted to listen to her music, and we all wanted to dress like her. This is something that could happen to you if you're an Aquarius rising, now that Pluto is going to be transiting your first house. If you are a Pisces rising, Pluto is going to be transiting your 12th house of spirituality, closure, endings, and also things that are the unseen. During the next 20 years, you could go through something like a spiritual awakening, where all of a sudden you start to recognize things that you can't actually see with your own naked eye. You might start to download information. You might start to understand more about the universe. You might start to see angel numbers. You also might get more interested in something like spirituality with astrology or numerology during this time as well. You could find yourself yourself becoming more and more and more isolated, as the 12th house is kind of the house of where you are alone. I feel like the 12th house can be the house of isolation. It's known for suffering, and it's known for just kind of being by yourself and turning towards spirituality to make sense of it all and light of it all. You might also find that when you have Pluto transiting your 12th house during this time, external factors may happen to you which may cause you to turn to spirituality to try to make sense and light of it all, because you might go through some triggering traumatic events, and you might also find yourself wanting to be alone more often and with spirituality to try to help you through things. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe for more content, because that will help me post more content about astrology, and I try to post a video every single Wednesday, if not more often.